Hello everybody, welcome to Catherine Sews. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today is finally the day that I'm going to make the jacket that goes with the pants that I'm making for my capsule wardrobe. I'm making the little jacket out of this acrylic knit that I bought from Fabcycle here in the Vancouver area. It's a Deadstock fabric, so I've made the pants out of the plain burgundy, and now finally I'm going to put to use the piece that has these white stripes. The white stripes are few and far between, so I'm probably just going to have one across the body and one on each sleeve. But the pattern that I'm using is the Diana jacket from Dressmaking Amore. This is the third pattern that I've used of theirs because when I went shopping on their site, you got a better deal if you bought 3 patterns. So I've already made the Jade Pants twice, and I've made this top, which is the Dove sweater, also from Dressmaking Amore. So now this Diana jacket is just going to complete the ensemble. Here's one issue, is that this Dove sweater has these beautiful bell sleeves, which I absolutely adore. I really think it elevates this mock turtleneck. There's a couple problems with those sleeves. The Diana jacket doesn't have a full sleeve. It's got a normal, classic, quite slim sleeve. I haven't even put my pattern together yet, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to start by, obviously, putting the pattern together, but then I'm going to compare the sleeve from the Dove sweater with this and see if I can either just use the Dove sleeve if the cap is similar enough, and if it's too dissimilar, probably the easiest way for me to cope with that is to just use the bottom half of the Dove sleeve with the Diana jacket. So yeah, I'm going to be making the Diana jacket, but into a bit more of a bell sleeve. Let's just jump in, get busy. I'll put my pattern together and we'll look at how I'm going to cope with that sleeve, maybe using the Dove sleeve. As I was putting the pattern together, I saw that there's a bust dart, which is not shown in the technical drawing at all. And I don't like to see a bust dart in a knit, so let me show you how I'm going to get rid of that. A bust dart, or any dart, is there to turn a 2-dimensional shape into a 3-dimensional shape to go around the curves of the body. But on a stretch knit, the knit can stretch over the curves of the body. So in most cases, that dart is not necessary. So I'm thinking I'm going to move half of the dart right up here into the armhole and half of it into the front section. You see how the front is really nipped in at the waist? I don't mind at all if that gets spread out a little bit. That'll give me a bit more room in the waist. And up here at the armhole, I'm going to show you how to walk your pattern pieces in paper so that you can see if this curve nicely aligns with the curve of the sleeve. It's very, very normal that the sleeve would be bigger than the armhole, and that's called ease, where the sleeve eases into the armhole. If the sleeve is a lot bigger, meaning that there's a lot of ease in the sleeve, then I definitely don't mind making the armhole bigger. They'll just fit together quite easily. So I'm going to show you how to walk them together to test that out. So this is the front of my sleeve. I'm going to put the front of the sleeve right side together with the front of the body. And I haven't trimmed my paper down all the way yet because I know I'm going to do some manipulation there. I'm going to take my pen. I can see through this. Well, in fact, maybe I'll even show a dotted line here where I can see the seam allowance through the sleeve, just to make sure that you can see what I'm doing. And then right here, I can see the center notch. So this spot should align with this spot when we're done walking. There will be some extra ease, so I probably won't get all the way to there, but we will see how much ease is here. Okay, so I've got my edges together, and wherever the edges can't stay together anymore, like wherever they diverge, I'm going to put my pen on the seam allowance at that point. And then I'm going to move this. There my seam allowances are together, and then shift this over. So do you see how my pen just holds it together at the sewing line as I kind of walk along as if I'm sewing it? So that takes me right to here. So this shoulder seam, that's the sewing line, comes to here. There's a full inch of ease just in the front of this sleeve. I'm just going to see if the same is true for the back. That would be quite a lot of ease if there's an inch in the front and the back. So here, same process. The notch lines up perfectly. I always like to see that. And then the shoulder seam is here. Most of the ease is in the front. That's a full inch in the front and what, about 3/4 of an inch in the back. So if I make this armhole a little bit bigger, we're still going to have plenty of ease. I'm not worried at all about that. So let's go ahead and do that. So I've drawn on this pattern piece a line right through the middle of the dart and extended it past the point of the dart. The bust point is usually about 2 centimeters or 3/4 of an inch past the dart. So I'm assuming that this is the bust point. Some patterns will mark that bust point for you. And then from that bust point, I just drew this line up into the armhole wherever I want that armhole to open up. It doesn't have to be any specific spot on the armhole. That just seemed like a logical place. And then I went straight down the front, parallel to the center front. Alrighty, so now I'm going to close up half of this dart and open the paper here, close up the other half of the dart and open the paper here. So this is my paper rotary cutter and I'm cutting on my line almost to the bust point. I want to leave a little bridge there. And then the same here on the top arm of my dart. I have to go right to the edge of the paper. Okay, so this is just held by a little bridge. And I want that to be a very little bridge, so I'll use scissors to finish that. So it was sitting right like that. So now I'm going to close up half this dart. I'm just going to bring that right down to there. And you see how it opens up at the armhole? That little bit of extra in the armhole is not going to be a problem at all because we already know that the sleeve is already much bigger. That's going to be fine. Same thing here. And on the lower arm of the dart, I'll take this and move this up to close the rest of that dart. So now the bust dart is gone and I'll just tape some new paper in behind. So there's the extra that's now set into the armhole. And this is giving me more room in the waist, which I think I'm going to like. Because I think that this jacket's going to be too small for me in the waist, I've already added an extra inch width at the back waist. Now this, what is this, about 3/4 of an inch here that I'm getting at the front, at the hemline, about 3/4 of an inch. I'm still going to add that full inch at the side here. I can always take it off if it's too much. And I'll just make sure my side seams are even. They are not. Because I've made quite a few changes and because I've never used this pattern before, I'm going to definitely try this out as it is. And I'm just going to cut it in muslin, which doesn't have any stretch. It'll give me an idea of how this jacket is going to fit and hang even without stretch. So there's just 4 pieces. I'm going to just quickly cut those out of muslin, sew them up, and test it out. And of course, I forgot one thing, didn't I? I forgot about the sleeve. This is the dove sleeve, and it's got this enormous bell on the bottom. And this is the Diana sleeve. What I'd like to do is just use this dove sleeve. So I'm going to walk these two together and see if I can just swap one for the other. They are a slightly different shape, right? You can see that this one has a lower cap, right? It's sitting lower. The Diana has a higher cap. I'm putting the top notches together. And if I walk it this way, this is the Diana notch. That's the one I actually want to use today. So I'm going to mark that there. And then the rest is pretty darn close. Less than a 1/4 inch difference there. So the sleeve that I want to use is a little bit bigger. On a knit, it's quite forgiving. I think I'll be just fine with that. So I just want to make sure there's no radical differences. And the back is exactly the same. So I'm going to be fine with this sleeve. Okay, so I think that the bust dart alteration worked out great. I'm just worried a little bit about the length because on the website for the Diana jacket pattern, the waist of the jacket grazes the waist of the pants. I don't want to go too long because then it kind of makes you look blocky, but I do want the 2 waistbands to interact. The sleeves I think are fantastic. The sleeve length is kind of perfect as it is, and I haven't hemmed this, so I think I have to add a hem allowance. I like that the t-shirt stripe will stick out the bottom. The width at the waist, I think is good. There might be a little extra around the waist. Maybe I didn't need to add all of that. So I'll do a bit of pinning like that. But one thing I really do like about doing this little prototype or muslin is that I can now plan exactly where I want that stripe to land. I'll lay out the fabric, see where the pattern pieces more or less have to go, because remember, I'm kind of short on fabric here, and then I'll approximate, because what I want is the stripe to match across. And so I'll draw it on the body and onto the sleeve so that I know I'm getting that stripe looking really sharp all the way across. So this is my rough line where I drew the stripe, and then I drew it again straighter, but I want to go over that again. One fun thing is that if you take a sharp pencil, you can drag it right in between the yarns in the fabric. So that shows me that I'm on grain now, because I want these stripes to connect from the front onto the sleeve. And when I had it on, I thought the stripe of the sleeve was going to go here. But when I look at the grain line, it's actually here, right? So that's important because obviously I want to put the pattern piece on grain, but have the stripe matching from front to back. Okay, so having drawn it like this, then I can make these marks on the pattern pieces as well. So I know exactly where to place them so that that stripe matches from the front onto the sleeve and onto the back. Good? Okay. The other thing is when I had it on, I pinned in that little bit about 1/2 inch in at the bottom and up to nothing under the arm. So I'll shave that off the side of the front and back. And I also decided I needed 2 inches in length. So if I just lay the edge of my 2-inch ruler right on that line and just pivot as I go. Good. And then here is where I want to come in 1/2 inch. I think I'll just bring it in, but then bring it back out, just in case I need that room back out at the hip. I can always make this adjustment later, but I think that seems pretty reasonable. Good. I'll just duplicate my side seam here. And doing it this way also ensures that the 2 sides are going to be the same length. Okay, that'll do. One thing that I haven't mentioned yet is that this sleeve doesn't quite fit on the width of the fabric. My fabric is a narrow knitted tube, so I do need to shave a little bit off here, but I'm not going to cut it because I do love this sleeve. I'm just going to fold from this point down. It's probably a good, I'm going to say 5/8 of an inch that it needs to come in there. And then the last adjustment to the sleeve is just to add that hem allowance. And yes, I definitely could have done this before turning in the side. That's okay. I think I will do a 2 centimeter or 3/4 of an inch hem. So now I just need to mark the stripe. I'm kind of putting the pattern piece back on, lining it up with the sewing line. There, that'll do. Use my sharp tracing wheel. So that shows me the stripe is going to go right here. It doesn't look perpendicular to my grain line. This is the important part where it matches to the sleeve. I'm going to use that as my target, but I still want to be perpendicular to the grain line. Otherwise I have to cut my piece off grain. Okay, the label is stripe. I think I can do this without taking the sleeve apart. Just lining the pattern back up with the sewing lines together. And we're coming in here to there. And on the back of the sleeve, right here. Again, it does not look perpendicular to my grain line. So I'm going to use this mark, the one that's at the front. Now, at least here I have a notch that helps me. So the stripe is coming right to the top of that notch, right about here, which I think is sitting a little higher than I probably have on my muslin. So I'm looking at my line being here. I put the muslin back on because I was just worried that this stripe is just so close to the cap. I just feel funny about that. Like I think it's going to look like it's coming up. And so I've gone back to the Diana sleeve. The Dove is wider and lower. The Diana is narrower and taller. So I'm going to do a quick little cheat here. If I line them both up, I just want to see how much more cap height the Diana has. And it's like a good 3/4 inch, right? But this is the sleeve I like. So you know what all I'm going to do is make myself a little note, and I'm not going to forget. I'm going to just go up 3/4 inch here. I'm just going to add a little bit of cap height. You know, I'm freewheeling it here. Like, I'm not going to do another muslin. I'm just going to add on that 3/4 inch. And you need to remind me when I'm cutting. Okay, I'm going to cut that first, just in case I don't hear you yelling at the screen to remind me. So coming up about 3/4 inch or 2 centimeters. There, and there. Okay, and then I just want to make a nice shape there. I could actually trace the other sleeve. Wouldn't that be smart? That would be so smart. There's my top notch, which I think I can probably still trust, even though I'm doing all of this changing. That seems all right. It's the red notch that I wanted on the back. I don't think I'll snip it, but I think I'll just mark it on both sleeves. Alrighty, whew. So there's the back notch and the top notch. Good. One piece cut. Yay. On one side, the stripe goes neatly through, and on the other side, it's a little jag. That jaggedy edge of the stripe was one thing I did not take notice of when I was planning where I was going to cut this. So I want to definitely make sure that on my center back, I put it where the stripe is nice. So this piece has to flip and doesn't fit. Okay, got my front there. I was scared there for a second. This is where I got the pocket for the Jade Pants that I made, right? I had no choice. So this should be good there, but I'm not going to cut it yet till I know where I'm going to put that back. That's the rest of the fold I have on the good side. Only other option would be to make my own center back seam. I think my seam would look better than that, wouldn't it? Okay. Center back seam it is. Do you see how that's just off there? Okay, don't worry. We're gonna get this. Oh, lordy. So I've tried every which way, and I'm gonna have to cheat. There's gonna be a center back seam no matter what. That's okay. But this is the current problem. Can you see this corner right here? It's over the edge. I've checked. The stripe does seem to be matching up. I put a pin through here. That should be through the top of the stripe on the other side. So my problem is this corner. I just don't have it. So I'm going to do a little cheat. So I am short this much. So I'm going to just draw myself a new shoulder seam. I'm not going to cut it because I will use this pattern again. But basically I'm taking off 3/4 inch. Fold that in. Now my pattern piece fits there, and I'm going to add my 3/4 inch to here. It doesn't change the fit at all. It just changes this shoulder seam. It's just going to come like that because I'm taking it off the front and I'm adding it to the back. So it's just going to change the angle of the shoulder seam, and that is going to have to be fine. And there you go. Oh, Bob's your uncle. No problem. A little cheeky maneuver there. And that, my friends, is how you go from being completely panic-stricken to solving your problem. No problem. And get my stripe lined up. Oh my goodness, yes. That's a thing of beauty. I'm just marking that center back seam because I don't want to forget. That would be terrible. All right, stripes are lined up. Everybody's happy, so we're going to cut. Phew, there are notches down the center front, which I'm not going to snip, but they're kind of useful for when you put on the front band. So I'll just mark them on both sides. I've got to preserve this area here for that neckband. And notches. Okay, neckband. And I'm going to put it between stripes so I don't have to mess around with that. I want to cut this though right along one of the lines of the knit. I believe they're called courses. So we got it. Okay, cutting is done. We all survived. So now I'm going to do my first sewing step, which I'm actually going to do on the serger. I prefer doing this straight on the serger, but you can always sew and then zigzag your edge, no problem. So the first two things I'm going to do, I've got the two neck bands right side together, and I'm just serging that end that has a little bit of a V in it. Just serge that together. And while I'm there, I'll serge that center back edge too. This stripe has to match up perfectly. So that center back seam, I think that was the way to go, right? Like that looks pretty dynamite, whereas the little jog in that other fold of the knit did not look good. So I'm happy with that. Okay, phew. So now I'm going to go to the iron and press these seams flat and then get onto the shoulder seams. Lots of steam and kind of shape it with your hands to look straight. It can easily go all wiggly. That looks good. Alrighty, next is shoulder seams and side seams. So I've got the back laying right side up. The front's going to go against it, right side together. Those two shoulder seams where I change the angle. This is probably the last time I'm ever going to think about that. I really don't think it's going to make any difference at all. And you can see here that the stripe is higher at the front than the back. But when I have it on, it looks balanced. And fingers crossed, the sleeve is going to connect nicely from one to the other. Good. So I'll serge all four of these seams. And you know what? I might as well take the sleeves to the serger as well. So for the body, I've got the front of the sweater facing up. And I'm starting at the bottom. And I'm just using regular universal needles and the regular 4-thread serge. Nothing different at all. I'm chaining these 4 seams together, just feeding one in right after the other. And you know what? I usually stabilize the shoulder seams of sweaters and things like that, but I didn't. I think I just had too much else on my mind. So you know what? Let's just see. Maybe we're going to be just fine. I don't know. With those 4 seams done, now I'm going to go straight across the bottom of the body just to prepare that. I've got the right side facing up so that I get the good side of the serging showing. And even in the first couple inches, I'm seeing there's some wiggling here, right? So I'm going to tighten up the differential feed just to keep that laying nice and flat. I'm pushing the seam allowances toward the back. And the seam is laying nicer. Now I've got the differential feed at 1.5. I'll just lay this center back seam. Doesn't matter which side, but I like the nicer side of the serging facing up. And seam allowance going toward the back. That body is ready for some sleeves. With my 2 sleeves now, I'm just going to serge right across the bottom. Again, I've got the good side of the fabric facing up. And just feed one in after the other. Now I'm going to fold the sleeve in half, right side together, and just serge that seam of the sleeve. That's the back with the single notch, so I'll have the front facing up. Bring my 2 bottom corners together, and then grab the halfway point. little bit of pressing and then I'll be able to see if these sleeves worked out and if that stripe is going to match. I'm going to press this with the good side of the serging facing up so that it's going toward the back. Nice. Beautiful. I love pressing. It makes you feel so good. These 4 seams just get snipped apart, then they all get pressed toward the back. I'm being sure not to stretch out this neck. I'm kind of holding it in place and not letting it just droop off the ironing board. Here's the whole body, and then the sleeve. There's my notch that shows me that this is the back of the sleeve, so I know this sleeve is going in that side. Okay, so just reach into that armhole, grab both side seams, and bring that over. And I'm just seeing if the sleeve is going to need an ease stitch or if it's going to go in okay. That's a fair amount of ease, but no, I don't think I need to sew in an ease stitch. Seam to seam, stripe to stripe. Yes. Okay. Yes. So far, so good. Beautiful. Oh my gosh. Yes. Easy peasy. Phew. Those stripes just fell right into place. I am a happy camper. There's the top notch. That's going to go to the shoulder seam. And I don't mind if I need to jiggle that around to get this sleeve to fit, but the back is like perfect. There is a bit more ease in the front, quite a bit more ease. So if I need to let that notch slide toward the back, that is okay. I feel like breaking out the champagne that those stripes matched. I was worried. Oh, I was not sure, but that just fell into place so beautifully. Like, look at what that's going to look like. Right? Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, okay. So line it up, reach in, grab the seams. Look at that. It's just volunteering to go together perfectly. After all of that malarkey, like changing the shoulder seam, changing the cap height, and oh my goodness, I'm actually quite amazed. Once I serge around the sleeve, then it's just neckband and hem and buttonhole. But that's pretty quick. I am a big fan of the Diana jacket so far, and I like it with the dove sleeve or a modified version of the dove sleeve. Happy, happy. Okay, so now I can just serge those sleeves on. So the whole jacket is still inside out. This is the circle of the armhole. There's the sleeve. I put the presser foot inside the sleeve so that I can keep my eye on the sleeve all the way around and make sure I'm not cutting anything I don't want to cut. But I do want to cut my serger threads. See this extra here? I can just kind of squish it down. I want to just have it flatten out so I don't end up with a pucker or a big pleat. Then that's one reason why working with knits is actually very forgiving. I wouldn't be able to do that as easily on a woven. So both sleeves are in. Okay, that's a B plus for the stripe matching. If I had been more cautious, okay, there's my A. That's what I want. If I had been more cautious, I would have basted this in first and then serged. That's just not my nature. When I see how good that looks, it makes me want to try the other ones again. It'll be worth it. Okay, here we go. So I don't have to take out the whole sleeve. I just need to take out enough that I can wiggle that up. So a couple inches on each side, no big problem. Here on the white section, you can see my serger threads, right? This is the bad side of the serging. This is the good side where you can see both needle threads. So I'm going to cut one needle thread. I'm doing it at the white part just so you can see. And then the second needle thread, and it's not the loop I want, it's the straight stitch that's holding down the loops. There. So just that patient again over here. And if I can make a little tail of the thread, then I can pull it out, find my second needle thread, pull it out, and the rest of the serging just comes off. So not a massive problem, but yes, would have been wise to baste first. And I just double checked to make sure this was one of the bad sections. Can you imagine? That would be so like me to take out the good one. Okay, so just like that. No big deal, right? Totally worth it. Okay, so I opened up all 3 of the baddies, and then I just got a needle and thread here, just in white thread, and right about at the sewing line where the serger would hit it, I'm just gonna stick my needle through and just do a little back stitch there by hand, so that I know that the stripe is totally nailed together. So there, you can learn from my mistakes, and you can just do that at the beginning. It's good to learn from your own mistakes, but it's even better to learn from somebody else's. So I'm here for you. Okay, should be good now. So now that those stripes are just nailed together, now I can go back in and fix that. Moment of truth. Let's see what that looks like. Well, there's my A. Oh my goodness, yes. So worth it. If my little basting stitches show, I can pull those out. They've done their job now. Excellent work, little basting stitches. Thank you. Okay. Oh, that was so worth it. That one is a low A. I'm happy though. It's good. So here at the serger, just going across the little center back seam of the neckband. And now right down at the bottom, I'm also going to fold it right side together and just do a little serge there. This could also just be done on the regular machine. Both ends like that. And then we're just going to take this over to the iron. Okay, I'll leave a little bit of a serger tail. It's going to be enclosed anyway. And I'm just going to push that little corner out nice and pointy. And then just press the whole thing in half with the good side out. Awesome. Good, so now attaching the neckband. So I want to put the neckband right up against that front edge of the sweater at the height of the hem. There's a 4 centimeter or 1.5 inches hem allowance on here. So maybe I'll go ahead and mark that with a pin. And then they do give some nice notches, like they give a notch at the corner and one at the shoulder and one at the back neck. But I was hesitant to clip notches because of this knit. So I'll just see if it's going to just volunteer to just go in nicely together. So the straight section of the front is no problem. And then around the V of the neck is 0 problem as well. And then at the bottom, I'm going to flip that hem up over like a nice tight wrap right over like that. So 1.5 inches, 4 centimeters from the bottom. There's the bottom edge of the neckband. Tight little wrap there. I'll trim off those serger tails when I serge this. And I'm just going to check to make sure that my stripe is landing in the same place across that center front. It's an almost. I'm going to fix that and make sure, right? I'm learning to be cautious. Actually, you know what? It is good. There and there. Okay. And again, that you can sew this and then serge if you prefer, or sew and then zigzag. I'm just going to go right to the serger. And so, serging right up that edge. Careful with pins at the serger. I don't want my edge to slip away at the corner. I'm going to keep those edges together so that it shows like a little bit more of a definite corner. Oops. Uh-oh, missed an edge there. So now when the hem comes down, that little corner of the neckband comes out. That just looks so nice. And now it's just a matter of hemming the bottom and the sleeves, a few buttonholes, and then we're done. So let's do the hem. I'm going to use the blind hem on the sleeves and on the bottom of the jacket. So it's a stitch that looks like that, where it's like 3 or 4 stitches and then a V. And I've got the width selector at 3. That's 3 steps to the left. And then the length I'm changing to 2, down from the default of 3. I'm going to try that on a scrap. And then I've got my R presser foot in there. Okay, good. So now you can see on my little scrap, those stitches have just caught enough, but on the outside, you don't see anything, especially when I press that flat. If you do see too much, like right at the beginning here, it's too much, I can see the stitches, then just take that width down so you're not taking such a big bite. I've turned up the body 4 centimeters or 1.5 inches, and now for the blind hem, I'm turning this back. The head of the pin still shows. These fingers are kind of keeping the fabric pressed up against the area where the needle is hopping over to make that stitch. I find that is helpful to kind of keep that pushed in there so that it doesn't miss stitches. And I might not be able to get right into the corner here, and that's okay. I'll get as close as I can, and then if I need to catch a couple stitches with a needle and thread, that'll be fine. Okay, pretty good. So if there are areas where it skipped a stitch, then just go over that area or those areas. But I think, there might be a couple places. So no problem, just an inch here and there. Good. And the outside looks good. It has a little dent until you press it. I'll be able to steam out that little dent, no problem. Okay, so for the sleeve, I tried it on with the Dove shirt, which has the same sleeve, and I found that it didn't need that extra that I had put on. I had added the extra 3/4. It really didn't need it. And so I've got a 2-inch hem here, which is kind of a no-no on a flare, doing a deep hem like that. But this knit is very forgiving and it just went in just fine, no problems. And I like the weight that 2-inch hem is giving. It's making the sleeve hang really, really nice. All that is left is the buttonholes. So I have one of the buttons in the back of my buttonhole presser foot. I'm selecting a plain buttonhole and the lever is down. Okay, and then I just ran to the iron and pressed the neckband flat and pressed the hem. And I marked 3 buttonholes. This is the bottom of the buttonhole, so it's, about 1/2 inch from the bottom. And then one that's closer to the corner of the top, the buttonhole will come up this way. So I want my presser foot to be centered on the neckband. These are my awesome little Henkel scissors. I love these for snipping buttonholes. And the link to these and all my tools are always in the description. So I'm just loving the way it looks. And now I'm just sewing on the 3 buttons. So I've got it lined up as nice as I can. And then I just kind of drag the needle into the buttonhole and set it in the middle of the neckband, but toward the top of the buttonhole, so that it can't fall down below. So this is my quadruple thread. And because this thick fabric has to sit between the button and the neckband, I'm going to use a spacer, and I'm using a giant nail. I kind of like using a nail because the head of the nail makes it not slip out so much. And you can put it on top of the button or under, doesn't matter. And because I'm using a quadruple thread, I just need to go through 3 times. And you might have noticed that I started on the outside of the band so that the button hides the knot. And then slide the nail out. There's my space. 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 times around because it's a bit of a bigger space. And then here we go. So you can use toothpicks, matchsticks, whatever you like to make that space. But it is kind of nice to make a space when you've got a thick fabric that's going to have to sit under your button. So I just button that one up and then find where the next one needs to sit. Okay, how lovely that is done. Okay, so the Diana jacket is done, and that completes my capsule wardrobe. So I'll be doing another video where I kind of put everything together as I pack for my Montreal and Toronto trip, because that's what this whole capsule wardrobe has all been about. As soon as that pack with me video is out, I'll link it in the description for sure, so you can see how these pieces mix and match with all kinds of gray and floral pieces that are already in my wardrobe. I hope that this makes sewing with knits less intimidating. There were so many situations in here that would have been harder if this was a woven fabric, right? Look at that. Without the bust dart, it's just great, right? And I think it wouldn't hang properly without a bust dart in a woven. But the knit just stretches around the body. It's just a dream, really. I personally love working with knits, and I hope that makes it less intimidating for you as well. So yes, I'm very happy with how that stripe matched all the way around. I'm happy with how it's hanging with no bust dart. I love the sleeves. Remember, that's the dove sleeve that I put onto the Diana jacket, and I am glad, I think, that I added that little bit more cap height. It makes the stripe kind of lay more straight. If the cap had been shorter, right, the stripe would have come up, which not a huge deal, but I think I'm happier with it as is. I actually feel really, really great in this little cardigan. And think of how cute this is going to be just with jeans or gray dress pant or with the matching pants that I made from the Jade Pant pattern. All three of the patterns are from dressmakingmore.com. So I'll link to their patterns and also to their tutorial for the Diana jacket. Their tutorial is super nice and fast. It's only 8 minutes long. I don't know how they do that so quickly, but it's really nice. So I'll link that in the description as well. So yes, I think I'm ready for my trip. My capsule wardrobe is ready to go. And so until next time, you take care.